Hello, beautiful viewers. Thanks for joining me. Today I am doing a medium reading on Prince Rogers Nelson. So I just finished rewatching his 2007 Super Bowl show where he sang Purple Rain in the Pouring Rain. Oh my gosh, wow. That was like a spiritual experience. Even watching it, I can't imagine what it would be like being there. So this man, I think, was a very spiritual man. Of course, we lost him 2 years ago. He's in the news because more details have come out about what happened, and nobody was charged in his death, but he had developed some opioid addiction because he had severe back pain, and he was prescribed it, and then unfortunately he's a star, so he was able to get what he wanted. So he got some Percocet laced with fentanyl and was using that and he overdosed. It was too much for him. So that is a very sad thing. Sometimes it's not good to be a star and be able to get what you want. Well, anyway, but Prince Rogers Nelson will always affect us with his music. And I want to ask Prince Rogers Nelson, Prince, in case you care to, and I understand he was a very lovely and respectful and polite and loving person when you met him. And so I'm asking him if he cares to, is there anything he wants everybody to know about his life, about him, about what's going on? All right, so I'm going to do a Celtic cross for Prince and ask him to use the cards to speak with us. All right, we have the King of Cups. That's okay. Yeah. Having seen that, I'm so glad I just watched that video because he is the King of Cups, isn't he? He has great emotional depth, and he has that ability to be caring and compassionate, just the things I was just talking about, but great emotional depth, that he had to work with and manage. And his challenge card was loss, was loss. I feel like he's saying that this means he did have some troubles with his mood going low too. He had some troubles with depression. Yeah, I'll just say it. Because the depth of emotion that he felt, the same thing that allowed him to be very soulful in his music and very compassionate to people, also sometimes created depression for him, made it difficult, because he didn't feel anything in a shallow way. It was always down to the depths of his soul, whatever it was he did feel. So let's see. And in the past, so we have the Ace of Swords. He felt, yeah. It almost looks like his guitar in some ways, doesn't it? He felt inspired. He felt it was a gift from God to be able to sing, to be able to play his music. It was a gift from God, and he was in that. He was in that gift when he was up there. Yeah. Okay. And beneath it all, for him, judgment. All right. Good judgment. Judgment. That's an interesting thing. I'm going to ask for clarification and from him about that. I feel like this man is a very complex man. Not one of these cards I've pulled so far feels like it's easily understood. It feels like he's showing me there are layers upon layers to even what he's communicating here. That's what I feel like he's showing me. Yeah, like this Judgment card. Yeah, there's the sense of, on the very surface, the sense that he hated people being judgmental. He did. He didn't like that. He saw that as, as the oppressive and kind of cruel thing it is. He saw how damaging it was. So there was that. But also, deep inside, sometimes he felt like he judged himself harshly. That's what I'm getting. He felt like judgment had fallen upon him in different ways that profoundly affected him. But not judgment like he actually did something wrong. Judgment like people being judgmental. He felt like this human beings judging each other is just the cruelest, most harmful thing that we humans do to each other. And he did suffer a lot with that judgment being placed upon him. And that's maybe part of the roots of this Five of Cups too. But no, he's telling me no, it was, he would feel such empathy for other people who are being judged or oppressed or treated cruelly. He would feel such empathy for him. It would sometimes take him into the depths. That's what he's telling me. Because he was indeed the King of Cups. Wow. Okay. Above it all, the Empress. And new birth, creation, his creative powers were everything to him. They were healing to him. They were how he lived. I feel like he was, in some ways, the Empress. I do. I feel like he was always, that's how he had to live, feeling everything he felt and giving birth to new creativity out of that. It's like that's how he lived. That's who he was. But yet he was also this, this sword cutting through the air. I just don't think he did anything halfway. I don't think he did anything halfway. In the immediate future, the Ten of Swords. So I think he's telling me that there were many people who hurt him. There were many people who hurt him. And he did feel it. He didn't ever shut his emotions off, to not feel it. Because he was emotionally very deep. And he did, I feel like his impetus was toward healing. So he did feel everything. But sometimes he'd become overwhelmed with it. Sometimes it was too much. And that's why, some people hurt. He was feeling very hurt at the time of his death. There were things that were hurting him. And not only judgment from strangers, because I think he was used to that. He knew how to deal with that. But he felt some hurts. And I would suggest that's probably people, maybe not in his immediate environment, but people in the periphery. He was always surrounded by people, and there were some he knew very well and trusted, and there were others that did affect his life, and he counted as friends who turned out not to be friends. That's what I'm seeing there. And I don't know who that is. But he's telling me they weren't the closest people to him, but they were people who he thought were friends. He had some level of trust in them. And then there was betrayal. It was hard. It's hard being this emotionally deep and sensitive and the target of exploitation sometimes, the target of, people who were interested in getting to know him for his money and his power. That was a difficult combination. So he's telling me about that opioid use too. He's telling me that he did have a lot of physical pain. Lots of physical pain, he's telling me. But also emotional pain. Hurts in recent years before he overdosed by people he thought were his friends. And look at this. All this beauty here on this side, you guys. Even the sadness, I feel like here's beauty because he turned it into beauty with the Empress. And then immediate future, which what I'm taking to mean the time right before he died. It's like this card put an end to all of that. It is. It's like not an end to it well, on this earth for good, yes, but he would have recovered. He would have recovered from this, but this was absorbing his attention around the time of his death. And it had been blocked his ability to process his emotions, to turn pain into new birth. It had blocked that. So he was using these drugs. He was sort of in a free fall and didn't know what to do about it. But he hurt so bad that physically and emotionally, it was too much for a while. So he was abusing those opioids. Okay, the Two of Wands in the root of the matter. International travel, the world in his hands. No, I don't feel like this is, yes, travel, but that's like I said, I feel like he's just such a deep person. Every card has several meanings. It's like I'm feeling his thinking, I'm thinking his thinking, and it just is amazing. It flits from one thing to the other and pulls it all together and then comes again into the specific and then back to the bigger, larger picture, and he just moves effort. It doesn't feel out of control. It does not feel manic. It feels just like genius. It feels just like amazing depth of perspective and intellect. That's intellect too. So when he's looking at the world in his hands, he is looking at the world. He's got two purposes here. He wanted to use his art and his influence to change the world. Two goals in particular, and one was about love. One was about helping people to become more compassionate and loving and attuned to their emotions, because that's all part of the same. And the other, what was the other purpose? Truth. Yeah, I think truth. I feel like his largest purpose was love, but then truth. He wanted oppression and things that were, well, and he did do that. That's why he spoke about what the record companies were doing to him when he took his symbol rather than his name for a while, said, I don't even own my own name, that kind of thing. Truth coming out was important to him, truth. I feel like he's saying, don't worry about talking about me with this overdose. Please talk about it. I feel like that's what he's saying. Don't worry about that. Truth. He was as devoted to truth as he was to love and compassion. So, wow. In the home environment, that's that purpose I was just talking about. That purpose. Yeah, truth. I feel like he used his music. He wanted people to understand themselves better and each other better. He understood so much about emotion, about relationship, about creative growth, about spirituality. The large picture, the world, the large picture. He had a very strong spirituality, not conventional, but a strong, like not religiosity, but a strong spirituality. And purpose, he saw it all as one, and he really was, trying to channel that in his music and in his performances. And I feel like, and it's not just about, it's almost like I feel like he's saying a human being is a whole. We are all one with the world. We're physical, we're emotional, we're spiritual, we're a whole, and our minds are part of the larger consciousness. That's what I'm hearing. And he wanted to help people to understand that about themselves and about their relationship to each other. Wow, this is a surprising reading. This is very passionate. He's very passionate. Wow. Well, it shouldn't be, I keep saying wow, I'm sorry, you guys, but I'm in this energy. I'm in this energy, and it's amazing. Woundedness, though. his hopes and fears. Okay. And I think at this point, he's not just talking about himself. He is talking about humanity. He's talking about everyone. He's saying this is the woundedness that so many people, in another deck, it's a bandage on the head, that so many people feel. And look at the dejection and the sadness and the discouragement here. He's felt that in his life. He was feeling that before he went, in some ways, in a lot of ways, yeah. But he says part of why he went, though, too, was an accident. He really kind of looks on it as an accident. He did not mean to overdose. He just said that he was, in that time, he was so consumed by hurt. It was like he could normally, if enough painful, emotionally painful things were dumped on him, he could normally feel them. He could go ahead and feel them completely, feel that loss completely, and think about it, and then write about it and sing about it and turn it into something beautiful. And that was his cycle. That's what he did all his life. But in the years before his death, there were too many swords. I mean, there was just too much. Boom, 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 boom. And the physical pain was something else too. And it was chronic, and that was really hard for him. It was just too much. So what he was normally able to do in those years, he was not able to do. And he did feel discouraged. But he feels like his death was an accident. He did not mean to do that. He was surprised by it. It's almost like he's saying, get up. Like he's out of his body and saying, get up. Because he was pretty tough too. He's an artist. He sang under any conditions. He was pretty tough too. But it was an accident. It was an accidental overdose. And he feels bad because he knows that if he would have been able to hang in longer at that time in his life, he would have been able to consolidate all the pain and turn it into yet another beautiful thing. So although I kind of hear him saying, but he knows it was his time. He just was somebody, he says he was someone that had such purpose. He was so passionate about this purpose that he had a hard time letting go of making that kind of change on this earth. It wasn't about him. He was sort of self-sacrificing. It wasn't, he didn't ask himself, is this life too hard, and wouldn't it be nice to be in heaven? He didn't ask himself that because he had a purpose, It was like that, and he was very passionate about it, and he wanted to help all of the people that were battle-weary. He wanted to turn his pain into empathy and compassion, not only for them, but he wanted them to have that for other people and for themselves. So, yep, there's purpose again. I'm talking about purpose. Look at this, you guys. This entire row, all wands. He is telling me I am on the right track. Exactly. Purpose. Love and truth and compassion. And isn't it interesting that the cards he is choosing to represent himself are females? And I am getting unequivocally, that's him. Okay? I don't think he saw gender as something that, he didn't see gender as something that was static or fixed. And he was very in touch with the more feminine, traditionally feminine aspects of himself, and often felt like he resonated more with the female side. Yeah, that's absolutely there. And he was glad for his career and the people that he worked with that were similarly tolerant. He was very glad for them because it allowed him to be fully himself instead of, when he was a child, people didn't understand that gender could be a very fluid concept and a continuum. When he was a child, people didn't understand that, and that was some of the source of the hurts when he was a child. But now he was glad he was able to grow into maturity in an environment where that was all acceptable, and he could fully be who he was and really embrace who he was. But then there's heartache in the outcome too. Yeah. And that to me is a different heartache than this. This isn't people hurting him. This is the negative forces the negative beliefs, the lies in the world. This is the mistakes that humanity makes, the common errors that humanity makes, that we all make. And he was hoping to see resolve much, much more during his lifetime. But the mistakes of thinking that it's us against them, we have to defend ourselves, we have to hurt other human beings to do that, we have to be fighting with other human beings in order to be safe. All of those misbeliefs, all the judgment, the we, they, that's what that is. And that would pain him regularly. And the Four of Pentacles, hanging on to his money. I wonder what that one means. Or hanging on to his security. I feel like he's saying, this is who I became. The Queen of Wands. And I liked it. I liked being that. But the harshness of the world and humanity was always a problem. He always felt it very deeply. And not only for himself, I always get, he felt it deeply for other people. At one time, yes, he felt it deeply for himself, but as he matured, he felt it deeply for other people. And money, he felt like money and concerns about money that was not a good influence in his life. It was not a positive influence. It was like this. It was, he was also surrounded by people, of course, who wanted to make money. He made a lot of money. He was extremely talented. He wanted all of the people. He had financial advisors. He was also found himself thrust into a world of money, which did not fit at all with his purposes. It did not fit at all with his emotional depth. It was a clanging gong there. It just did not fit. But he was constantly in this world of money, just by virtue of his talent and the wealth he was accumulating. Contracts, agents, attorneys. So he feels like he wishes he would have been, I'm saying it wrong. He doesn't regret that. He just is saying that was another very painful and negative influence in his life, and it was a challenge to his higher purpose. That's what I'm seeing. It just wasn't what he was about, but yet every single day he was confronted with the importance of that to other people and why it should be important to him. And he bought into that thinking like, oh yeah, got to protect my money. And he feels like that was another negative part of the world, of humanity, that did him no favors, that doesn't do anybody any favors. Okay, I feel like that's the heart of the reading right there. I am going to keep clarifying for those who want to continue tuning in, because this is so beautiful. His energy is so strong. I mean, it is like nerve endings tingling, like so strong you almost can't breathe, but in a good way. It's just, I feel like his energy invites a person to completely enter the channel of spirituality and just roar. Just roar in love and in power and in truth and everything that is amazing. So, wow. I did not expect, I always knew he was a deep man, but he's an incredible person, incredible figure, soul. Government, the Hierophant, order, convention, clarifying, the Five of Cups. Yeah, he didn't resonate with that stuff. No, he didn't, but he needed to, right? He felt it was the constraints of humanity. Like I said, he doesn't even regret it. He had to live in this world, right? He had to live in this world. There were practical matters, but that was always sort of at odds with the true essence, I think, of his spirit. The judgment, yeah. He hates judgmentalism. He really, I don't want to say hate. Well, it came out of me that kind of strong. I think he's felt like that in his lifetime. He hates judgmentalism. And it bounds people up and it puts them in jail. And he hates that. He absolutely hates it. He wishes if he could tell us one thing, it's to judge no one else, because we don't know about the depth of their pain and suffering. We don't know if they too are overwhelmed and unable to cope. All right, yeah, the Emperor. Okay, the Empress. 5 of Pentacles clarifies that, yes. Any pain he had, any depression. That's another depression card. This is a depression card. Any deep emotional pain and feeling left out in the cold, he would give voice to that in his music, and to the disenfranchised too. He would give voice. He was hoping to reach them. Okay, let me see about this inspiration and the devil. Okay. Now, the man was a genius. I'm really getting that. Sometimes did he feel chained to that? Sometimes was it difficult for him to turn off his thinking? Sometimes was it, no, I'm not even getting that. Nope. He felt kind of chained to that because he was given such gifts of understanding. And like I said, going from the big picture to the small picture to the specifics to tying, he could see humanity and a human being in particular in such a rich and varied way. He felt a huge responsibility to use that. It was part of his purpose. He was meant to do that. And it sometimes felt kind of chained to it. He didn't have a carefree life. He wasn't able to just, he had joy. Oh, he did have joy. But carefree? No, not really. He did have joy. But I don't know. Much was given. Much was given to whom much is given, much is expected. All right. And this pain, he was dealing with a difficult emotional passage from feeling hurt, and he was starting to process it and move through it. He was beginning to do that already with his lessons in the boat and move toward calmer shores. He was already beginning to process through this glut of painful experiences and emotions, but he accidentally overdosed instead. But I feel like he's telling me that he would never have accepted the carefree, loving, joyous existence he has now. He would never have accepted that for himself if he'd been given a choice, because he had purpose. He wanted to help. He wanted to use his gifts. He had purpose. So he wouldn't have stepped into the afterlife willingly, right? No. He wouldn't have. Yet his heart cried out. He did have a lot of pain. He did have a lot of hurt. And it was hard being him sometimes. Yes, just because of the gift he had and the perspective he had and the great empathy and compassion he had. It was not an easy, carefree existence by any means, and he had a hard time finding that freedom of thought and feeling. So it wasn't easy being him. However, so it's like his soul was crying out for, have I done my work? He's telling me it's almost like, and he never knew that when he was here, but it's almost like his soul was crying out, have I already done my work? Have I done enough? So his overdose, it was an accident, but he does not regret it, because that was God, that was universe, that was the oneness saying, you've done your work, you've done well, you've done it. It's time. It's time for you to be carefree. You've done enough. That's what I'm seeing here. So he gratefully accepted that joyfulness, and he did become accustomed to receiving that carefree, being taken care of, being a one, being whole, being at peace. He did come to accept that existence fairly quickly after he passed. And he's very grateful for it. And I said something wrong though, cared for. It wasn't even that. It was one with care with no cares. You know, being one with love with no cares. All of these cares that he would carry around, this empathy, this compassion, this depth of emotion, just gone, just drifted off. And it was time for him to do that. And he's very happy. He's very happy. And he's happy as he looks back on his legacy. He's happy. He was in the hanged man with his purpose. Okay, so he found delays and difficulties. He was frustrated by them when he was just trying to help people understand truth and understand love and compassion and having to deal with this world, right? With its limitations. He was sometimes very frustrated by the delays in that. If there was a delay in getting something out there, or a delay, okay, it's even bigger than that, because every card for him has several meanings, because that's the way his brain works. He, when he was on this earth, would get frustrated that humanity wasn't ready for this or ready for that, or he was so far ahead, and he was hoping to convey to them, and people a lot of times were sitting here analyzing the specifics about some little thing, and they weren't seeing big picture. That was frustrating to him. And that's why he did his music, hoping to catch him. You know, I gotta say, you guys, it's a little bit like, I feel like, you know, I do feel like, and he wasn't Jesus. He wasn't like Jesus in that way, of course, but in every way, of course. But he was like him in that he saw some higher truths, and he lived with it, and he lived in it, and it was there with him. And he struggled with, how do you convey that to people? And I felt like Jesus chose parables to do that. He chose, a lot of times I feel like when I read what Jesus said, he was speaking a language that most people around him didn't understand. People were frequently misinterpreting what he was saying because they were interpreting it on a more simplistic level. And he was trying to get people to open up their minds to the larger love, you know, the larger truth, the larger God. You know, he was always trying to help people to understand what they couldn't understand if they were fully enmeshed in daily cares of life, right? And I feel like Prince felt some of that too, that limitation, trying to help people to break free of some of that. Okay, not that he would, and he's telling me, not that he would say he was saintly by any means. He's telling me, you know, he made his mistakes, he made his errors, but he embraced those too. He embraced his humanity. He was